back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the 5 things that I dislike about the Acura CL and probably why you wouldn't want to buy one. So let's get started. Well, number one thing about this car that I dislike is the lack of community around it. So as an Acura brand enthusiast and general Honda enthusiast, I would say, there's not a community around the Acura CL. There's communities around many other cars. I mean, you can almost find a community for every Honda and Acura, and there is one for this, but it's not a mature community. It's not an established community. It doesn't have the type of following that you get with other vehicles of the brand. A good example of this would be like, the Accord community, which this is based off of, is far vast and has all sorts of people involved in it from all levels. I mean, you got people who want to race it, you got people who want to modify it extensively for show, you got people who want to maintain them and preserve them, and that doesn't really exist for the Acura CL. You get people who, a few of us, and you know who you are, that want to preserve these cars because they understand the importance, the heritage. This was Acura's first Type S. It's also one of Acura's rarest cars. I mean, it's rarer than the Integra Type R, for example. At least the 6-speed manual one I'm referring to. And the only thing that's more rare than this car at this time when filming it is the Zanardi edition of the NSX. So why isn't there more of a community around this car? Well, it only lasted 2 generations, and those generations were from 1997 until 2003, so there's a small window there, but generally speaking, the community is just not around this car, and that really makes it hard for an enthusiast to be an enthusiast when you don't have people who are with you who share that same passion. So that brings me to number 2. Number 2 is there's really nothing that you can do to these cars that has any significance to them, which is probably why there's not much community around it. Yeah, there are a few companies that make parts or have made parts in the past. You know what this car has. It has Comtech parts on it, and Comtech was a major player. Their background was in racing. They were partnered with Acura for a short period of time to make performance add-on parts that were dealer installed or could be purchased through the dealership. They even made a Comtech version of this car with a supercharger and a kit and a whole slew of other add-ons to kind of bring focus on this car, and it just didn't pay off. And for that reason, there's a few companies today that still make parts. Like, you can go through P2R for some parts, mostly because it's a J32A2, which was used in other vehicles. But that's about it. Number 3 thing that I dislike about this car is just its size. It is an unnecessarily large vehicle for what it is and what it offers. It's 3,300 pounds approximately, and there's just way more than what needs to be here. It's way longer than it needs to be. The trunk is just absolutely massive. It holds luggage for 4 people, although you can fit 4 people in this car, not comfortably. The necessity for 4 people's worth of luggage in the trunk is just preposterous. It doesn't need to be that big. And it doesn't lend itself to being a very attractive car either because of that. If it was a little bit shorter, if it had a little bit more aggressive styling, then I think people would look at this car a little differently. But unfortunately, it's, way too big. Number 4 on my list, the interior. The interior of this vehicle is a little cheap looking, honestly. When you look at its competitors, this car was benchmarked, or, well, not benchmarked, but placed up against the BMW 330i, and in my opinion, that car looks better both from the exterior and from the interior. But from the interior, it looks better. It has a higher quality to it. So why did Acura put fake wood in large quantities in this vehicle? It just doesn't lend itself to being a good interior. With that being said, though, I wouldn't buy the BMW for a number of reasons. But, that's one thing I dislike about this car is the interior, cheap add-ons that they put in there to make it look like wood. And number five thing that I dislike about this, nobody knows what this car is. When I take it to Cars and Coffee, people overlook this car all the time. There are a few people who recognize what it is, the significance of it. I've had conversations with those people, and I've been, flabbergasted that they even get to see one of these, because nobody drives these anymore. And when they do, they're always the automatic, right? And so when they see a 6-speed Type S CL out at Cars and Coffee or at a Honda event or something like that, they kind of lose their minds. But then there's the 99% of people who go, that's just a coupe from Acura in the early 2000s. What significance does that have in a Cars and Coffee? Nobody knows what it is. Although, ironically, people will overappreciate other cars from the same brand. And I won't call those cars out, but the appreciation that they show in large quantities for these other Acura and Honda cars, I don't want to take away from, but what I would say is that I see them all the time. And so I don't understand why people get all giddy about those cars. I'd rather see something that I've never seen before, which is why I actually own this car, because it's something that you don't see all the time. But those are 5 things that I dislike about the Acura CL, and I'm curious what you guys think about that. What are the things that you dislike about the CL, or perhaps the things that you like about the CL? Maybe you own one, and maybe you have a reason for owning that people like myself would be interested in knowing. So leave a comment down below. This is a short video today. Have a good one.